Hello, everyone. We're coming up to the fifth Sunday of Lent, and this gospel reading from this weekend is from the Gospel of St. John, chapter 7, verse 53 to chapter 8, verse 11. Bible passage that might not be part of the original gospel, but was inserted later in like a 6th or 7th century after Christ, which is a real important fact. It might not have been in there, critics say, because it was a little difficult to justify that Jesus would have forgiven an adulteress. And that's probably the major consensus. But then it was put back in, so obviously there is movement in the church. And you can imagine Jesus was in the temple and he's teaching, so there's a crowd around him. And in come, they break in, the Pharisees and the other doctors, and they put in the middle a woman who was caught in flagrant adultery. And they asked Jesus, they said, the law of Moses says that she should be stoned to death. What do you say? It was obviously a trap. He knew it. He knew they were after him, trying to get him. But the amazing thing is how Jesus works this situation is so that the law of God and not the law of Moses will come forth. You have to underline the difference between the law of Moses. There's one point in Jesus says to the crowd, it's like, for the hardness of your heart and your mind, Moses gave you that law. And then there's the law of God. And so they ask him a question. Jesus, what does he do? He bows his head and begins to write on the ground with his finger. Now that's written in the gospel. We don't know what he's writing on the ground. It's probably not really important. But a couple of theories could be very interesting to help us even deepen our understanding and what the lesson is for us in this gospel passage. Some people say he might have been writing the law of God on the soil. So what would the law of God be? Mercy, forgiveness, and not stoning, the law of Moses, And so the difference in the two. Or someone else said that he might have been writing the names of those who were standing around accusing this woman, because he probably knew that. And just thinking of the woman's here. Where's the guy who was there too as well? So anyway, he's writing on the ground. And that's the same time he's in silence, and everyone's in silence. And that throws off, I believe, it throws off his accusers. We're asking a question, he's not answering us, give us an answer. They're what do we do now? And also it's like Jesus saying, could you ask me that again? Could you go through that again with me, And they have to go back in and reformulate. And so it's almost pushing them back into themselves, so they have to rethink about what they're asking, And so they do. They say, we want a judgment. What do you think? And that's where Jesus turns the tables. And he pushes them again back into themselves. He says, which of you who is without sin, throw the stone first against her. And he's citing the law of Moses, because the laws of Moses said, if you're going to caught an adulteress and you bring her for trial, the witnesses are the first ones to throw the stones against the woman. And so he's saying, examine your conscience. That's what he's saying. Go back and he's like, examine your conscience. Are you without sin? Now, who of us are without sin? So he's starting from a truth. And that's what God is about, getting down to the truth of our being and not living in the surface, which would be our faults, our frailties, our, falling down, our incapacities. Go back into your consciousness. Who's without sin here? Is any of us without sin? Obviously Jesus was, but we're not. And so the gospel says they all went away, beginning with the elder. And interesting is the elder was the representative of the group, the older person who held the authority of the group. And he's the first one to leave. The wisest one, maybe he realized, we've been had by this guy. So they begin leaving. And then everyone else follows suit, because they all realize none of us were without sin. And that's one of the major, teachings of this passage, And so they all leave. And there's the group who was listening to the lesson, the woman, and Jesus. Now, an interesting question. All of the accusers left, but the woman remains there. Why? Why'd she stay? No one was accused her. She could have left. She finds herself. Once she heard the truth coming from the truth. We're all sinners. So it's like Jesus brought everyone to the same level. So she wasn't any different than anyone else. Those who left, they all admitted We should be standing here too asking forgiveness. Those who are sitting there, they're all on the same level again. Jesus brought it to the same level. And what is the answer of God to our condition? God's not going to invest in your sin. That's not where he wants to go. That energy is not going to stand there and decline what you did and say, why did you do this? What happened? That's not where God's goes. God's going to forgiveness. God's going to his mercy, where he wants you to allow his breath that was seated in you in creation, your creation, to come forth. That's what God wants. God knows we're frail. He knows where we fall down. He knows that. He doesn't have to go there. He goes back to the program, back to the project. That's fullness. That's love. That's becoming. That's life. And he wants to release that. So what does Jesus say to the woman? Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? No, sir. Neither do I condemn you. That's God's answer to each and every one of us. We're looking towards Easter on the horizon. Easter is new life, resurrection. And he's standing behind someone who's like, you would think blocked, or she was being accused of being blocked. There's no light, new life here. And God said, yes, there is. There's new life in you, Ed. Go and sin no more. So that also, that go is a mission. Get back on your road. Go out now and tell people what what you are, who you are, what's God's life within you, how you were treated by God. So go and sin no more. So again, for those who criticize today and say, oh my gosh, you're just watering down the gospel. No, that's what Jesus is teaching. Jesus doesn't not recognize the sin. The sin doesn't say, oh, well, we just don't look at it. No. He says, go and don't sin anymore. He knows the sin's there, but that's not what God wants to invest in, the sin. He wants to invest in your becoming you and releasing that life of breath of God that's within you. So the invitation as we draw nearer to Easter time is to avail ourselves of the mercy of God. He doesn't want to invest in your frailties. He wants you to release the life, his breath that's within you, so that can be our prayer and our meditation for this coming week as we move closer to Easter week coming up. So hopefully then you'll feel that healing power of God in your life.